Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to our daily stand-up. In this one, I'm going to show kind of my Rust introduction project that I have running right now. Basically, it's gonna be interesting. I spent like an hour and a half last night probably looking at tutorials and trying to figure out what in the world's happening in Rust. I've never used Rust as a language, so basically just watched tutorials and I mean, you all know, right? Just going through documentation and how do I install it? All the different things you can do in the language and watching tutorials and everything like that. So basically, what everyone else is doing. So this is my VS Code with my just kind of introduction Rust project that I'm going to use to hopefully learn a lot of the language syntax and kind of nuances of the language. Um, VS Code is actually nice because I can just run it from there and it'll run the executable for me and output to my terminal window, which is nice. Otherwise, I'd have to go and do cargo run and then it would run the executable. Or if it's not a cargo project, which is what I used to create this one, if I just went to like in my whatever file.rs and then had my main entry point, I'd have to compile it and then navigate to the executable file and then run the executable. So it seems like cargo. I don't, if people are familiar with Rust at all, is cargo the way to go? Like, is cargo the recommended way to create a Rust project? That's just what I'm kind of under the impression it is, like from the tutorials, but I could be wrong. I don't know. I don't know much about the language at all. So basically, I've just kind of been going through, like calling macros for like this print line macro. Um, Also, I have to figure out what the distinction is in Rust between a macro and just like a function. But uh, this variable declarations with types, learning about you know the default for variables being immutable. So if I were to take out the explicit thing for making it mutable, it's not going to let me change it. So that's kind of neat, and I could see how that could be make it easy to um, write concurrent code if all your data structures are immutable. So another thing is variable shadowing. So this variable doesn't know anything about that one. Um, at least actually. Can you use that one? I might have said that wrong. Basically, what I got from it is that this variable. I think I said that wrong. This variable here has no reference to here, even though it's technically as we would read it, redefined. This is actually, I think, a new variable because it's in this like different scope. They call it variable shadowing. Pretty interesting concept. Um, I would assume it's kind of like JavaScript's, you know, variable scoping, but I think it's again. I'm literally learning this for the first time last night, so just I could see how that would trip you up a lot if you had code that somehow was in a setup like that. That would be pretty annoying to debug. Uh, Defining constants with types, and then I just have general like build notes on like what to do for building a cargo project and doing it that way. Um, but yeah, everything can just use cargo run, which is kind of neat. So yeah, if I go cargo run, it'll just do that. But VS Code just provides the option just to go to the top of the method and then run it. So I don't see any downsides to that unless somebody else knows a reason why you shouldn't just use this option here. Um, but yeah, so Rust seems pretty cool. It seems like there's a couple similarities to like node projects like that you may see. Like it has a lock file, which I think they use also to list the dependencies. I'm not sure what this file is yet, um, and there's a lot of stuff that I don't know yet. But basically, it seems like your entry point has to be a main method to your whatever your Rust project is. So I would assume that everything kind of funnels through this. So that's your entry point. So if that's the case, that should actually make it easy to work with because you know what's going to be called when you run your executable. So that's kind of neat. Um, but yeah, so where this is hopefully going to fit into my project is basically I have this engines model um, class. So this has a bunch of fields that are going to be set either by the front end or going to be calculated by data sent from the front end. I think it's going to be a combination of both. But basically, this, as well as I think some additional information that I just haven't kind of specced out yet, is going to be sent from my controller to my RabbitMQ server. And then I hope to connect my Rust microservice, so this one, to my RabbitMQ server to consume the messages posted to the queue. And hopefully it's allows me to write very fast processing in the messages. So we'll see if that works. I looked up some tutorials, and it doesn't seem too crazy to connect Rust to RabbitMQ, which is cool. So to be honest with you, I'm hoping to use ChatGPT to just kind of write the boilerplate code for me that I need to just connect to my RabbitMQ server. Um, I'm not trying to be an expert in Rust. I hope to just like learn enough of the syntax to generally, allow me to read it and debug hopefully common things. Um, so that's kind of about it. So let's go up to the sprint board here. So our current in progress ticket is this prototype backend consumer project. I have it pointed at a 5, and basically I added a few notes earlier um, just to point out that I'm researching and learning Rust, as well as generally researching how to connect to my RabbitMQ server. I put this in developer notes. Uh, Generally, when I'm working on a ticket, I try to keep like some kind of notes section and call it whatever, of like notes of like problems I've encountered, or notes as to like if I think there's going to be a blocker to this ticket, or if I think that the ticket's going to take longer than what I initially estimated it to be. It's generally good to keep that written down somewhere. Um, that's honestly one of the hardest parts about software, is just keeping the communication open as to what you're doing, right? The worst thing you can do is back yourself into a corner and, have never expressed that you have a problem or you have issues in the code until you're at like your last resort and you can't do anything about it. Um, so it may not be the most convenient thing to do that, but I think it'll help in the long term to get in the habit of just recording and writing down what's going on with your ticket. So that's kind of it. I do have to update my architecture diagram to include a Rust microservice, or at least a prototype of that. I'll probably do that tonight and then probably update it on it tomorrow, at least just a rough diagram for how I think it's going to work out to be. So I'll update that. I'll report on that tomorrow, and I'll try to get my Rust microservice to a place where I can at least connect to my RabbitMQ server and begin to experiment with hopefully processing the messages very quickly, because that's all the things I've been reading about, is how fast the language executes. So I'm hoping to really leverage that to get us to the goal of where I want to be for how many messages that I'm able to send up to my message queue. So that's kind of it. That's kind of like the long term plan for this. Obviously, you can see what we've done so far. We've done a lot. Most of it's been prototyping and research, and that's not going to change anytime soon. It's basically what this entire project, truly is just researching and prototyping. Um, our to-do is probably going to grow. I'll probably add to it a few more things based on what comes out of researching Rust. But I'll update. I'll have a video on that when I make the actual tickets and begin to implement that. Um, Honestly, it's hard with this planning section. The planning is like slowly becoming the same as the to-do column, but we'll see. Nobody said planning is easy, right? Planning is one of the harder parts about software engineering. So Anyway, guys, appreciate you all watching and look forward to the next one.